Hello everyone, Bill here from the editor's desk. I just wanted to quickly say that what you're about to listen to is a live taping of a talk that Chris and I gave at the Framingham Public Library a few days ago. We were invited by some very cool librarians, Kelly and Sarah, thank you so much, to come down and give a talk on mutual aid. The basics, how it's applied now, what people can do. So we decided after listening through to leave the tape pretty much unedited. There are some people who ask questions. There are some people who interject. Those are the librarians. And it was a good time. So let's roll the tape.
You guys are all going to be involved for a live taping of the Outdoor Cats podcast for Worcester Sucks, unless you don't want to be, in which case I won't tell anyone, and just don't say
We'll cut you out.
Yeah, that's right. So I need to change my mask up.
You don't need to. I just thought it might
Yeah, I might ditch this halfway through. What's up? We have a Worcester Sucks celebrity right here. No, it's okay. It's okay. Thank you for coming. Yeah. Great. Well, hey, everyone, thank you so much for coming. This is going to be a talk on mutual aid in general, and then applied specifically, and how it is being applied specifically across the country in the current moment, the nightmare that it is. My name is Bill Shaner, and to the left of me is Chris Robarge. We are the two voices you'll hear on the Outdoor Cats podcast on Worcester Sucks and I Love It, the email newsletter covering Worcester city politics that I started in 2020. And today the topic of conversation is mutual aid. Mutual aid is an important and I think not as well understood concept as it could be. It gets overused and used in the wrong way. And luckily, we have with us a real, he's pretty much an expert in mutual aid. Chris, why don't you tell the good folks a little bit about your background and how you came to be a member of this podcast?
Sure. Yeah. I'm going to try to do some of the heavy lifting tonight. Bill's not feeling his best, which is a bummer because I'm the smart one on the podcast, but he's the funny one. So we'll do the best we can. So my name is Chris Robarge, and I guess you could say I am an organizer by trade and profession, and I have been for a while, and particularly in the last decade or so, a lot of the professional and personal organizing work that I've done is centered around mutual aid structures. And there's a long explanation to how I got there, but basically to make it shorter, I started doing organizing work in kind of the typical political and campaign kind of realms. I sort of found what I felt like was the limitations of being in that world. I had a really awesome opportunity for several years to work at the ACLU of Massachusetts, where I was a field organizer there. got to do a lot of really, really great work on civil rights and civil liberties, but also, ran into some of the limitations that come with, working for a large NGO. And then for a few years, really for a long time as a volunteer, and then for some time as an employee, I worked for essentially a mutual aid organization, which is the Massachusetts Bail Fund. And so, I've also done a lot of harm reduction, street outreach kind of work. And I guess the reason that I think that's important to say in connection to this is that what the journey that I've been on, and I think this might resonate with some people who show up for something like this, is realizing that some of the most useful work that I can do is local and small and in formation with my community to try to solve relatively small portions of solvable problems. And that it can be, simple stuff like people need Narcan, I can get it to them. People need harm reduction supplies for safe drug use, I can get that to them. I have the ability to make those connections and to hand those things off, and it's very, very easy stuff to do. So the big thing, I guess, to start with about mutual aid is if it sounds weird or scary or intimidating, it's probably as a result of lack of familiarity. It's not. Mutual aid can be so stupidly simple to do. You should probably start at the beginning with what is mutual aid. I don't really know who I'm talking to, so I hope that I'm not. If I'm telling everybody a bunch of stuff that you already know, please let me know and I'll speed it up.
Well, hey, hold on. What if we have like a little show of hands? Who could rattle off a good definition of mutual aid right now in the audience? Like if I called on you to do it, which I won't, because that sucks. But if I were to, could you? Now raise your hand if you could. Well, of course, Julie. Great. So,
okay, great.
So that's okay. So I will say two of 10, or a little like that. Like a little half. Are you just psyching me out?
No.
Oh, really? Oh my God! I thought you were doing a bit. Anybody who feels inspired or motivated to do a bit can.
Yeah,
I think.
please.
I think that if you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to interject with the question. But yeah, so Chris, it sounds like you really do need to start from square one with this.
Yeah, which is great. I promise you will all leave here with a workable concept of what mutual aid is. In my estimation, supported by some historical fact. So the first thing that I personally tell people when I talk about what is mutual aid is it's kind of helpful to first ask the question, who was Peter Kropotkin? Has anybody heard of Peter Kropotkin? Okay. Peter or Pyotr Kropotkin was a Russian prince who gave up the nobility in the late 1800s and decided to basically become like an organizer in the streets with people.
I just want to point out that we have some mutual aid books, including that book on that table if anyone wants to check them out in scenes.
That's awesome, because one of the last things I was going to do is be like, here's a couple books you might want to check out since we're at the library. Even better. Librarians are the best. Librarians are the best. So anyway, Kropotkin, left a life of privilege and wealth and stuff to do this kind of organizing work in just pre-Soviet, pre-revolution monarchy Russia. He was in prison several times for doing this work. And I bring him up because he wrote the book, if you wanted to say oversimplified, he wrote the book on mutual aid. It's literally called Mutual Aid. And so he was the first person to sort of put into written terms what is this concept. Now, I hedge that by saying Peter Kropotkin did not invent mutual aid. Mutual aid has existed since time immemorial, and it's actually a central argument that he makes. But I think it's important when you're talking about something like this, as two white guys talking about anarchist white guys, to say he did not invent mutual aid. Mutual aid has been done for centuries, millennia. Mutual aid, one of the big arguments that he makes is that mutual aid is a very natural concept. I'll get there.
Right. It's as natural as two white guys doing podcasts.
Exactly. It's exactly as natural. So anyway, another white guy writer, an activist, I should say, Dean Spade, he wrote a book a couple of years ago. I think it actually came out in 2020. And he created a 3-pillared definition for what mutual aid is that, as I have sort of was going through trying to think about how to explain this, I think is probably the best one that I've seen. So the first pillar is mutual aid projects work to meet survival needs and build a shared understanding about why people do not have what they need. So I think the important part of that is, first, it is trying to meet these needs that people have, but then continuing to explore. It doesn't end there, or it doesn't have to end there. If you're really trying to build a mutual aid project, it should start at, you are cold, you need this thing, and then lead to why. Why don't you have these basic things that you need? And then, he talks about, again, how, back to the 1700s, there is, written records of mutual aid and self-help traditions in Black communities. One of the things I used to always tell people when I was doing bail fund work is bail funds originated out of the Black community. They originated out of chattel slavery, when Black people were held in bondage and they were considered property. And there were people who were able to be freed, and one of the first things they did was start raising money to free other slaves. That is a great example of a mutual aid project. So the second piece is that mutual aid projects mobilize people, expand solidarity, and build movements. So a good way to think about this is, and there's some examples of it that we'll probably talk about a little bit later, but a good way to think about this is, or some good examples of it, are a lot of the COVID era mutual aid projects that kicked off pretty quickly and were able to be pretty nimble, were able to do so because they came out of mutual aid structures that had already existed. So like in New York City, a good example is there were a bunch of people who came out of the Occupy movement that when Hurricane Sandy happened, they created Occupy Sandy, and they did a lot of food distribution, clothing distribution, helping people with the things that they needed when they had lost all this stuff to a natural disaster. Eventually that disaster, it's a little more complicated than that, but the disaster ended, right? But those people didn't just fold up shop and forget who everyone else was. And so when there was this next need, they were ready to mobilize. And the needs are often the same or very similar. It was the same thing in Katrina. That's a project that I'll probably talk about a little bit. But after Hurricane Katrina, there was a ton of organizing. They did a lot of work around community health. And it was so they were very ready when COVID hit to jump back in and do that kind of work. So it's just a thing to think about as you're thinking about what kind of mutual aid stuff you might want to do. Is a lot of it is just building the relationships and networks with people who are like-minded and want to do similar work, and then keeping those so that you're ready the next time the next thing happens, because unfortunately it's gonna. The third piece is that mutual aid projects are participatory, solving problems through collective action rather than waiting for saviors. And I think this is a really big central one. A big concept in mutual aid is that everyone is doing the work together. There is generally not a hierarchy. There is not a leadership. There is not, there may be people who are sort of leaders, but not in a way that shifts the power dynamic from it being everyone's project, and it being as much with the people that you're providing mutual aid for as for them.
Right. I think a really good example of that, and it's in the news. In fact, it's all over the news. You can't get away from it right now. Both of the people shot in Minneapolis were engaged in a sort of form of mutual aid that has cropped up since sort of the, I don't know what you want to call it, war on terror part 4 or 5 that has been unleashed in American cities across the country. They were participating in something that we have in Worcester, and it exists in cities across the country, where it's called being like an observer, where you alert people to the presence of ICE officers. You record as much as you can, and you document as much as you can about what they do when they come into a community, and you build up other infrastructure such as tip lines and neighborhood-to-neighborhood communication networks. And one of the coolest inventions, I think, of the past year, the whistling, to build sort of a organic and deeply embedded resistance network to document these abuses of power and very oftentimes completely illegal deportation proceedings initiated by ICE officers looking to satisfy an arbitrary quota. And that has been sort of the principal axis on which the resistance in Minneapolis and in LA and everywhere else, including Worcester, where it has happened, it's operated on that. And now in the media they get called protesters, and that's not quite right, because protesters show up to demand somebody else do something. These people were doing something concrete, helpful, and meaningful in real time. They were observers, and I think that is a good sort of central visual for what mutual aid looks like. Is all of the people who are observers get trained by somebody who already knows what they're doing, and then they just go out and they do it, and they do it to help the people in their community. It's as simple as that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I was just listening to a thing on the way here. It was talking about how there's been in right-wing media spheres, certainly there's been this drumbeat of like, we have to find they're professional agitators. It's an organized national network of anti-government agitators, and we've got to find the heads and cut them off, and we've got to find their funding sources and cut them off. And it's like, you can't, and that's not true. I promise you, if there was a massive, well-organized, well-funded national network of people doing this work, I would know about it. I'm not saying that with any sense of ego, like I just would, and it's not how it works. Anyone who's ever done, like a Food Not Bombs or something knows it's just like a bunch of, dusty people throwing some cheap food together or whatever, and that's what we're talking about.
No, and just because it doesn't exist doesn't mean we'd be opposed to it.
Of course.
If any of you happen to be billionaires, we have a few places you could be writing checks to.
My George Soros checks have not come in quite some time.
No, I send an email.
It's really becoming a problem.
I send an email once a month. Hey, what gives?
Looking for just need my W-2, George Soros.
Do I need to fill out a W-9? What's going on?
Yeah. What's the tax structure here?
Sending George Soros a W-9 every year.
Yeah,
please.
We should try it. It's tax season.
Hey, yeah, shit.
I think that is actually the beauty of it, though, right? And as I am an anarchist, which is the thing that I'll talk about a little bit, just because I think the two concepts are very closely intertwined. But part of that structure and doing anti-fascist organizing and doing mutual aid organizing is that it doesn't have a centralized structure, and it can be picked up and put down by anybody, and the frameworks for doing the work are always the same. And it's very easy for a bunch of people to be like, oh, there's 10,000 protesters in the street. Let's autonomously make 1,000 lasagnas and bring them there. That's very doable, and it's very easy. It's very difficult to stop. So one of the important things that I think becomes like a source of confusion for people I think in a good faith way when they're learning about mutual aid, and then sometimes in a way that I wish they would sort of re-explore as they're doing what they think is mutual aid, is what is the difference, what differentiates mutual aid from charity? And it's a really, really important distinction. Mutual aid focuses on getting people the things that they need right now while we work towards getting to the root causes of the problems that exist. And that the problems that exist are not problems that are, the problem is, if you don't have food or shelter, the problem is not you. The problem is a system that has failed to provide that for everyone, that we don't all have the things that we need. And so mutual aid kind of operates from a concept of abundance, and also, very importantly, a concept of not having a power dynamic exist. So there's a great quote that Dean Spade, the guy who wrote the book from 2020, has that basically says, charity is about encountering people in crisis and saying, how do these people need to be fixed? Mutual aid encounters people in crisis and says, you should have everything you need, and it is the systems that are to blame for these crises, not you. It offers aid without strings attached and without the rigorous eligibility requirements, based on the idea that everyone should have housing, medicine, childcare, or whatever they need.
Well, wait, but if everyone gets those things, how am I supposed to feel better than them because I have it?
It's true. It's true. It is. It does make that. It does make that difficult.
That presents a problem for me.
Well, I know a almost never-ending list of charities that would love to have your help.
Yeah. So with this mutual aid stuff, there's like organizations you can sort of like launder your corporate profits through, right?
I got some bad news for you on that front too. Yeah.
So why would you even bother with this mutual aid stuff? I can't make myself feel better than people. I can't talk down to them, and I can't launder my corporate profits through a shell company. So why would I do mutual aid?
Yeah, I think in all seriousness, one of the greatest things about mutual aid is its simplicity. Having done charitable work before, and I'm not knocking charitable work, I genuinely am not. I'm just differentiating what this is from what that is, and why I have a preference now in my life to one versus the other. But I never felt comfortable with, say, doing food distribution and having to means test, right? Having to be like, oh, do you really need food? Do you need that much food? You can only have 4 foods this week, you've got kids, so you can have 6 foods. There's so much food. There's more food in this country than any of us could eat. And a ton of it gets wasted. I think I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But the idea of mutual aid is that you eliminate the means testing. You eliminate those barriers, and you eliminate this sense of, I am up here with things that you need, and you are down here needing things. We're all, we all need things. We need different things at different times. There are people who come in. The Worcester free fridges are a great example, or any sort of free fridge system. Great example of mutual aid. Great example of a very accomplishable kind of mutual aid that you can do in your community. I volunteer for the free fridges. I clean them. I pick up food. I distribute it to the fridges. I also sometimes take food from the fridges. Sometimes because I need it, kind of. Sometimes just because there's something in there that I want, and that's totally fine. And some people will only put things in the fridge and they'll never take things out. Some people will only take things out and never put something in. And some people will do both. And that's okay. We can create it easily. We have created an ecosystem where that works, right? And that's the idea.
I was down at the free fridge one time dropping some stuff off.
Is this story?
On Portland Street. It's over by the Worcester Public Library, which it's not as nice as this library. It's a very nice library. Not as nice as the Framingham Library or the Framingham Library McAuliffe branch that I almost drove to and was going to be like 15 minutes late. But I'm dropping off some food there, and this guy, he's watching me do it. And I'm like, I'm trying to get a read on him because it's Worcester and you should do that. And I'm like, well, he's going to say something to me. It's going to be probably pretty fucking weird. And he goes, and, you know, he's like an older towny gentleman, and he goes, yeah, you know, a couple weeks ago, I see these Asians. They show up and they're driving a Lamborghini, and they go into the fridge and they take everything. And I had to be like, okay, like that's good, that's fine, that's what it's there for, you know. And he was like, well, no. He didn't know how to handle it. And it's like, no, that's the charity mindset. You having to like automatically self-process whether you deserve it or the person you're giving something deserves it. That is a paradigm that's like the fundamental difference between mutual aid and charity. And I, number one, don't believe what that guy told me. I think that he probably heard that from somebody else who heard that from somebody else who made it up.
I know about Framingham. There's not a ton of Lamborghinis driving around Worcester. If there was one, I'd probably notice.
And it's like he was like watching that show about whatever, it's Crazy Rich Asians or whatever, and he's like, what if somebody what if one of those people took something from the fridge? Yeah, it's like, so I just kind of left it at, well, that would be good if they did, and I just got it in my car. So I hope I gave him something to chew on and something to learn about this, is that it's not, there's no inherent judgment. It operates on a different sort of edict entirely. And I just want to tell that story because I think it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, some of the experiences that I've had at the fridge are, people that will come and seek you out. It's usually a kind of person, to be honest with you, someone who kind of looks like an older version of me. I'll let you figure out what I mean by that. And people that will come to me and be like, oh, well, people just come and they take everything, they'll come, they'll fill up their whole car, or this, or and it's like I'm here a fair bit. Like I really rarely see that happen. The fridge winds up empty sometimes within an hour, but it's because there is so much need. People are coming, people are checking it all the time. But I've put 8 salmon steaks in the thing. We get stuff from Trader Joe's. If anyone decides to start doing this kind of distribution, Trader Joe's are a good place to start. They usually are pretty good about allowing access to their waste food, including even allowing you to like schedule to do that. And I've seen 4 people sit there and like divide up the salmon steaks. Here, everybody gets some. I've seen people come and take some stuff and put in some other stuff. They've got too much kale, but they need some yogurt, and that's what it's supposed to do. The people are supposed to come. If there's food in the fridge and all the food gets taken, that's the point. And I will tell you this: the issue with keeping that fridge full is not a lack of food. It is a lack of logistics to be able to get the food from where it is to the fridges. There's enough food for everyone to eat out of those fridges, like as much as they want. And so it's just, it's a good way to think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that the one of the even more important than, well, not more important, obviously, getting people fed is the most important thing, but attacking the mentality that, like, if there is it's such an American way to think. It's like, if there is a social support system, there necessarily must be people who are scamming it, and they have an image in their head automatically of what those people look like, because the programming of the thought machine is very real. It's been going on for a very long time, and undoing that programming to get people to think that their neighbors are people that are worth knowing, worth standing up for, and worth building community with, it takes as long a time as the sort of foundation has been laid to make people resent and hate each other. So, I mean, there's a very fundamental clash of perspectives going on with something as simple as putting a fridge in the middle of downtown Worcester and seeing if people use it,
Yeah.
And it's an experiment in that way, and it's a very righteous experiment. And it's something that anybody in Framingham who can afford a refrigerator could start tomorrow. The DPW might take it, so you probably have to do a little bit more work than just putting it somewhere. But you've literally, the people who started the Worcester Community Fridges are from the National Free Fridge Foundation. They just started the organization. They just did it. And they probably learned it from somewhere else. I don't know. I've never asked Maria or any of them that question, but it's just like Chris was saying. It's a repeatable, simple models of mutual support. Yes?
I just wanted to say that anyone who doesn't know, we have a little free food pantry in our foyer that anyone can donate to or take to at any time. There's some hygiene products, but there's also canned goods and non-perishables. But that's always open for people to donate to or take from. We have bags.
All right, I'll be sure to clear that out on my way out.
Yes, exactly. I'm taking all of it in my Lamborghini.
Yeah, after I get into my Lamborghini, that's right.
That's really great to know. And I mean, I think that the biggest problems that they had, the biggest obstacles that they faced were, one, siting, especially when the project was new, right? Because there was not a concept of what this is in Worcester. And so they had to find places where the fridges could live. And I think there was definitely some confusion and consternation around wait, you want to put a fridge on my property and then just anyone can come and take stuff from it, including homeless people. And then the fridges went out, and by and large, it's been fine. There's been one place where the fridge had to be removed, and it was frankly because the city refused to provide the infrastructure for garbage.
A trash can. Let's not overcomplicate this.
Trash can.
The city refused to provide a trash can.
Yes, by the infrastructure for garbage, I mean a trash can.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think it's just worth saying quickly that I have a section here that it's called the inextricable link between mutual aid and anarchism. So, like I said, and anarchism. So I am politically an anarchist. You don't have to be an anarchist. You don't have to, do whatever. I only mention it because mutual aid comes out of anarchistic thinking, in the sense that it is opposed to authority and it is anti-capitalist. Those are really the important things that I would say are important to look for when you're looking at a mutual aid project that someone else has or that you want to have, and you're kind of having this analysis of, is this really mutual aid? Did I create this, crazy leadership structure? Am I doing things that are sort of outside of the general concepts that this should be for everyone without a test of of needs or scarcity, and that it should be of everyone who wants to be involved, and that no one in this process is more important than the other people. There's a great quote from Kropotkin to this effect. He talks a lot in the book. I think I kind of said this before. He talks a lot in the book. One of the things I love about the book is he talks about mutual aid as a completely natural. It is the way of the world. It is our natural state of being. It is the animal world and the plant world's natural way of being. Plants help each other out. They grow root systems that are cooperative. Mosses will communicate between trees and tell this one that this one needs nutrients, and then send them through. The vast majority of the natural world is essentially a mutual aid project. It is extremely cooperative and non-hierarchical, for the most part. And he talks about that a lot in the book. And I think it helped to shape the way that I think about this, not as this I have to learn this haughty academic concept. It's this is just the way things are supposed to be. And lions don't go kill, 40,000 gazelles and hoard them in a cave and not let anyone else have them. That's an unnatural thing. So anyway, he says, in the long run, the practice of solidarity proves much more advantageous to the species than the development of individuals endowed with predatory inclinations. And I think that kind of just says it.
Right. I mean, the only animal that does that is dragon, and that's made up animal.
It's true.
Yeah.
Dragons do hoard. They do be hoarding.
And the natural world also extends to hunks. Firefighters, fire departments are one of the longest practicing. This is something I learned from you, Chris.
I was going to say, I could be here all night.
Yeah, he's look at him, proud teacher over here. Longest practitioners, mutual aid. The whole concept of mutual aid is built into fire department strategy. It's very simple. It's like if one place has a fire, all the surrounding fire departments shift their trucks over, pick up at other stations, make sure everything is covered, and sort of just give need where it's needed at the time. And I don't know if you ever met a firefighter, but none of those guys have red marks or angles.
Maybe one or two.
Yeah, maybe one or two. Yeah, that's right. I'm over generalizing, and I'm being mean to the hunks, which is fine because really I'm just jealous. I'm jealous of their physique, their abilities, and their pensions too. Yeah, firefighters are one of the better examples of mutual aid that exists.
Yeah, and I could dork out on this all night. I used to be a firefighter. My brother is a firefighter, I was a rural firefighter. Like I was in a small place, and that concept extends to even your town might buy this specific piece. You might have the nice dive boat and gear, and my town might buy a system to refill the air bottles. We don't all need to have the same. I mean, a library is a great concept of this, right? We don't all need to have 500,000 books. We can actually just kind of share things and move things around. And you can have it when you need it, and I can have it when I need it. I might need it even more. I might need it 10 times, and you only need it one time. That's fine. It's just the way it goes. And yeah, it's a beautiful process. I feel like we should talk about some actual examples and some of the other stuff. Before we do, I really love any chance that I get to share this story, so I'm just going to share it. I have a friend who lives in Chicago. Her name is Adita, and Adita is Bosnian, and she was a kid during the Bosnian Civil War and genocide, and she lived through it for a number of years before her family was able to get out. And she told me this story that I've never forgotten about how when the war started to come, she lived in a suburb outside of Sarajevo. And when the war started to come, there was a guy who was, Bill and I always joke that we're like kind of prepper leaning, but this is where I, in all seriousness, like to make the distinction that I'm not a like hoarder prepper. And there's a method to my madness here, I promise. But there was this guy in their village who he'd been ready for something like this, right? He was a prepper. He was a Bosnian prepper. He had, I don't know, hundreds of jars of, canned off food and, preserved stuff and all these things. And he was a jerk about it. And when things, when the, what hit the fan, he hoarded. And he was like, no, I'm going in my little bunker world and whatever. And you guys can all, you can pound sand. You didn't collect all this stuff. I did. And the interesting thing about that was that most people who are even really into that, there's kind of a limit to like your logistical ability to do that. You might have enough food for 3 months or 6 months, maybe a year, but when something goes on for years, they were there for almost 5 years before they got out. And what happened was very interesting and probably kind of predictable if you can sort of imagine where I'm going with this, which is that everyone else built a system of community resilience. And when somebody had sugar or bread or whatever, or eggs, grain, they would share amongst each other. And the person who really like wound up on the short end of that deal was the guy who hoarded all of his stuff and wouldn't share it with anyone. Anyway, it's, great little Aesop's fable or whatever, but like it actually happened to a friend of mine, and she was like, oh, I understand this concept. Like this is this thing that happened. And yeah, it's a great, like, that's actually, it's the most effective way. It's not just a like moral or ethical decision. It is actually the most effective way for us to take care of each other.
I can't wait until that happens, where one of those come and take it guys goes out into the wilderness with all of his stuff, like a dragon would, very much like a dragon. And then he has to crawl back into town after some months. He's run out of all of his hoard, his bounty of goods that he's accumulated. And I get to affirmatively, positively say, "Come and take it. Come and take it. Come here. Come and take it." Yeah. Smugly. Yeah.
You describe yourself as an anarchist. Aren't anarchists historically opposed to all organization and cooperation? They seem like the opposite of mutual aid. Like libertarians often describe themselves as neo-anarchists.
Yeah. So here's the answer that I would say. I can't speak for anarchism. I also am not someone. I've read some of the foundational texts and stuff. I'm not someone who's like, well, according to Engel's third book, or I find kind of the structure in the community and the vibes of it more interesting than like the nitty gritty. But what I will say is that my understanding of the concept of anarchism and the way that I approach it is that it is not there's no opposition to structure. There's an opposition to authority and hierarchy. So it's not there is some people who actually do, like, they try to like be politically anarchist. Will tell you there's like way too much structure, way too many meetings, way too much like consensus and stuff like that. And yeah, the people. The last thing I'll say is people that. Libertarians or people of that ilk who describe themselves as anarcho-capitalists are not real things. They're just capitalists. It just sounds cooler to them, and they think they get to have the like cool black flag, and they don't.
More Reddit karma. Yeah. So you know how there's the elves, and then there's the orcs, right? So the orcs are like sort of the fallen elves. Sort of corrupted and twisted by Sauron's aims into serving as his army. That's libertarians and anarchists. Libertarians come from sort of a root of anarchism, but it's perverted by the American sense of rugged individualism, and they just think that man, and they have an image of one particular man in their head when they think that man can be perfect and that they can be perfect on their own, and that is fundamentally not what anarchism, faithfully interpreted, is about. Collective structures and collective activity and collective solidarity. It's very much a collectivist tradition of thought as opposed to an individualist tradition of thought, and that's one of the harder things for the American mind to understand, because we've been so sort of soaked in the propaganda of individualism. As we have been at the same time atomized by the free market. So it's a 1-2 punch, hard to combat. So I appreciate that question very much, because it's something that I think me and Chris would usually skip over, but it's a really good question.
Yeah.
One more quickie. Was Kropotkin an anarchist?
Kropotkin became an anarchist. Yeah, he was an anarchist. I don't know if he would have described himself an anarchist the day he was like, "Nah, I'm not a prince," but yeah, he became an anarchist. I would say for people who follow the political trajectory of anarchism, he is one of the early anarchist theorists and writers. Yeah, and sorry.
So I can look him up.
What's that?
Could you spell his name?
Oh, yeah, sorry. K-R-O-P. Let me look at it. Now it's like dialing a phone.
Don't ask me to do it.
K-R-O-P-O-T-K-I-N.
Yeah, that is not at all how I spelled it in my notes. Thank you.
One thing I should say... sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to talk about how anarchists have crazy names,
Yeah.
Boochkin.
Got a lot of folks from the Russian Empire, Eastern Europe, big anarchist. I mean, it's kind of like the cradle of like modern written anarchism. A lot of folks who came out of that world. There's one thing I think is important to say about the book by Kropotkin, and that is that there is a chapter in that book. Like I said, it sort of walks through, like, first couple chapters are, this is this is mutual aid naturally displayed in the animal world. And then it sort of works forward to the contemporary world. One of the analyses that he does, and I think it's actually, when you get down to it, a very accurate analysis, is of indigenous peoples. However, writing a book in, I think, the title of that chapter is it's something like Anarchism in the World of Savages. So I would not co-sign that use of language, obviously, and so just, be aware it's there, and it was, the parlance of the time or whatever, but I don't love running into that, and so you should just know it's there.
So, back in the skull measuring days.
Yeah, also you guys got some Tolkienism from Bill, which is always a really pleasant treat.
Listen, you gotta separate the art from the artist, I don't have to like the guy.
All right, we want to talk about some. I'm going to run through some cool examples of mutual aid in, like, contemporary history. I'm not going to talk about them a lot. I'm just going to talk about a couple of them quick, mostly because I think some of them are really cool. Bail and Freedom Funds, we kind of talked about a little bit, but yeah. I'm a big fan of Bail and Freedom Fund type work. It's a great it's a great way that you can do this sort of work. The biggest obstacle in that world is money. It takes a lot of it. The Bail Fund that I worked for did not accept grants or take federal money or anything. We were 100% donation funded, and that was an intentional decision. That meant that I think it's very analogous to the work that Bill does at Worcester Sucks, right? Like, if you are paid for entirely by your supporters, those are the only people that you have to answer to. And so we didn't want to take money from the government that might say, oh, we'll give you a grant for $500,000, but you can only use it to free this kind of person. That's one of the beauties to me of mutual aid, is you get to take all that stuff aside and just be like, I want to get food or medicine or whatever to as many of the people who need it as I possibly can. I'm not going to think about who they are. I'm not going to think about their criminal background. I'm not going to think about their income. I'm not going to worry about whether they have a cell phone or if it's, too new or whatever. I'm just going to do it. The Black Panther Party, their survival programs are a really good example of this. Particularly the one that a lot of people know about is the Breakfast for Children program, where they just had a free breakfast drop-in. People could just come and eat food. The Panthers are interesting. They were one of the first kind of big political organizations, radical political organizations, that really put a lot of focus on, like, doing this kind of work, that people need to be fed and sheltered and clothed before they can really engage meaningfully in, a political movement. One of my favorites. I'll probably end just after this one. One of my favorites, the Young Lords, another radical political organization of Latinos, I think mostly Chicanos, in New York City in the 60s and 70s. There was a huge issue. There were a ton of public health issues in the neighborhoods that they were coming from, particularly the South Bronx, Long Island City, East New York. And one of the huge health problems that was happening there at the time was tuberculosis. And so they started these people's clinics in places where the city just didn't come. They didn't care. They weren't going to the places where the problem was bad. And at one point they got fed up with their lack of resources, and they commandeered a city mobile x-ray truck, and they just took it. And they immediately started to run it 7 days a week, 12 hours a day in the neighborhoods that it never went to. And they kind of got away with it for a while. And then they tried to seize a hospital, and they kind of met.
They did pretty well with that.
They did. They probably bit off a little more than they could chew with that one. But they for an extended period of time, ran a mobile community health chest X-ray unit that they just yoinked from the city, and were like, "You're not using this you're not using this to its potential for the community that needs it, so we're going to do that for you."
There was I think you'll remember, it was 2 years ago now, during the winter. The SOS Worcester people did RM Village. They,
Yes.
Instead of, putting their tents as far away from where the police could see them, they made a demonstration of it and put a collection of tents right outside of the emergency winter homeless shelter funded by the city, which was perpetually overfull and means tested and lacked safety for women and trans folk especially, and they called it the RM Village and made a protest of it, and the cops quickly and sort of violently shut that down very fast. But that was sort of in the spirit of what the young lords were doing. And that group, SOS Worcester, and a sort of attendant collection of unhoused and formerly incarcerated women called Project Priceless. They've been doing a lot of harm reduction work in Worcester, which is I feel like one of the offshoots of mutual aid you're most likely to hear about or encounter these days. And one of the hardest things that people have a hard time getting over with that is that, like, you don't have to be, like, sober or in recovery to access services provided by harm reduction organizations. The idea is that if you help people do drugs safer while sort of encouraging people to seek help where they need it, that you do a better job of solving the problem than if you punitively force people into treatment or slash their tents and throw their shit out and hit them with trespassing charges that make them spend a day in jail, and then they go back out the next day into the same conditions that they were in with less resources, and then they die 3 weeks later, like what happened recently in Worcester, which is something I'm writing about. Anyway.
One of the central tenets of doing that kind of work to me, that was told to me by someone much smarter than me, was most people, not everyone, but most people will at some point want to approach recovery, and the best way to get them there is to not have them die before they get there. Like, it's that simple. That's why I think it's important to help people be safe who are, using drugs and experiencing the various challenges that come with that, or not using them and are still unhoused, or whatever it might be. Can we keep you safe and relatively healthy and alive until you get to the point that you want to make that choice? One of the things that I learned when I worked freeing people from jail is that the one of the single biggest risk factors for overdose is incarceration. Because you go in, you get no treatment in almost every case, especially if you're just picked up and you're in a county jail for a few days or whatever. So you go through a hard detox, and then you get dumped out to the street. A lot of people that I personally got out died, hours or days after. And it's a tough thing to contend with, but yeah, it doesn't help. It hurts. Yeah,
that's actually where me and Chris first hit it off, is in that kind of work. Remember when you had me come out and follow you around while you were passing out COVID kits?
Yeah, one of the, I think probably one of the last things you wrote for Worcester Magazine before you before you punched the clock for the last time and decided to strike out on your own, was Bill came and followed me around. So it's like early in COVID. I want to say that was like April, maybe?
May? Yeah, it would have been April or May, yeah. So I quit in June. So
I had, there was this organization, still exists, that I had done work with before, this organization called Whose Corner Is It Anyway? And it's an organization of active, current and former sex workers in various states of housing, drug use or not use. And this is what they do. They do really DIY level harm reduction. And they had created a kit really early on. They created a kit of very attainable supplies that you could get to people on the streets that would help them be safer. And it was, stuff like rudimentary masks. This is when masks were still really hard to find. So a lot of homemade masks, things like wound protection. I was homebrewing hand sanitizer with grain alcohol. So doing this really, gather whatever I could find kind of distribution. And Bill came out and tailed me around. And we got some stuff out to folks. And then we're downtown. Bill was there with me. We're downtown. And this is a funny thing about when you get on the ground and interact with people that can help you. If one of the things I will talk about at the very end here very soon is some kind of like action items for, are you thinking about doing something? What are some things you should think about? This is a really good example of why it's so important, why I think the mutual aid structure is so important for actually addressing people's needs. What we found out when we were down on the street, you're like, what do you need? What do you need that I don't have? And several people in different locations downtown were like, water. We need water. We don't have any access to water. The way we used to get water was to go to City Hall or the library or whatever to get water, and all of those places are closed. There's no we cannot access water. And I was like, shit, I didn't even think of that. So, then we went and figured out some ways to get people water. I think the differentiation there is like we were quicker to that sort of information than, say, the Worcester County Food Bank was. And again, no shade on them or whatever, but being out on the ground, talking to the people who need things. I've trained organizers for a long time, and one of the things that consistently seems to blow people's minds, particularly in an academic setting, is when I tell them, if you want to know what people need, just ask them. Like, they'll tell you. They know what they need, and they'll be happy to tell you what it is that they need. It's really sometimes that simple. So I think that's one of the things I would say, if you're thinking about getting stuff together, don't overthink it. Where are my other notes on that?
Yeah, I carried a case of water around after that in my car.
Yeah.
I was like, doop, doop. Yeah.
I pretty much always have one now because people always need water. They need it when it's hot. They need it when it's cold. So if you're thinking that you want to do some mutual aid, what do you do now? This is an incomplete list, I would say. But obviously a good place to start is think about identifying a need, particularly like a manageable piece of a need. So I hope we all want to end hunger, but we're probably not going to individually end hunger worldwide forever. But maybe there's a particular thing that we have the resource to get, and a certain area or whatever that we can work on trying to start to solve that problem. The second really important thing I think to do is do a quick analysis or a little research to find out, is anyone else doing this work? Because a lot of times what I've found is that there are in particular well-meaning people of privilege who want to do something and have the notion or just sort of arrive at the conclusion that they're the first and only people that have thought of this problem, and they don't know that there's these other groups that are already on the ground doing the work. And if there are, the best thing you can do is probably plug into the mutual aid project we don't need someone to come to Worcester and start a new free fridge project. We have a great one. So if that's the thing you want to do, come join the people who are already doing it. I try to look at what services exist, what are the limitations that they have, especially if they're charity services, who don't they serve, and what are the gaps. And then, what can you do to resource the need? Is there some place that you can get water donations or get Trader Joe's to, open up, give you access to pallets of food before they throw them in the dumpster? That kind of thing. Who can help you? Like I said, a big part of this is building community with other people. It's part of what makes it feel good to do, and makes it worthwhile, and can give you something back out of it. And it also makes these structures resilient. It means that, we are all doing a food distribution together, but I know that you have this source where you have unlimited access to Narcan. I wind up needing some for this new thing I'm going to work on. I know who I can talk to. I know some of the people who like to go out and talk to people and distribute things. It's really kind of, in a lot of ways, mutual aid is all one big project. And then I think just knowing that you can do small things to prepare to do mutual aid now or in the future. Collect resources, don't hoard them, but collect them. If you are someone who has access to, I am someone who has access to as much Narcan as I want to get my hands on. I don't hoard it, but I try to let everyone who I know that, like, if you need 10 Narcans or 500 Narcans, just tell me. I will get them for you. Just to collect resources, build skills, and don't hoard your resources or hoard your skills. Teach other people about those things. That's what makes the network resilient. Right. And I think that's pretty much what I have.
I would say that just, I think that a lot of what's motivating people right now into wanting to be more politically active, politically motivated, connected, is the roving death squads putting on a running TV show for a death cult in our country.
It's probably a factor.
Yeah, so if that is one of you, I'm talking about ICE, if that is you and you're like, shit, I really want to do something about these otherwise unemployable, disgusting pigs coming into communities and causing terror for the sake of it. A good question to start is, if you see ICE, who are you going to call? And if you don't know the answer to that right now, then sounds like there is a need for a mutual aid group in your community. I'm not sure if Framingham has an ICE Watch.
We have the Loose hotline, which there are actually, I'm the social work intern in the public library. I print out their cards and I tend to keep a stack of them in a couple different languages over in the center over here. So
Fantastic.
Mirror signs from Mira too.
Bulletin boards. Right now, as far as immigration goes, Mira and Loose are the two organizations I would say doing the best work in the state. Worcester, I know because I was out with them in May for sort of like one of the first encounters with the Goon Squad in the country, and that was precipitated by people who had already signed up to participate in Loose's rapid response program, where a call comes into the hotline, they see ICE, they will send observers out, people like the folks you've seen on the news, Renee Good, Alex Preddy, rest in peace. You send observers out, and the observers observe what's happening, ask questions, and that is a challenge to the authority of ICE agents that they don't take well to, being asked what they're doing there and why. And it has the effect of turning them into totally incompetent, bumbling buffoons, and it makes their occupation of even a mid-sized city like Minneapolis, we're seeing like incredibly difficult. They become less scary. It is that is a righteous part of the work. So I think that rapid response training, I'm not sure if it's being offered in Framingham, but the thing about mutual aid is that if you want somebody's number that's done it in Worcester, I'd be happy to share that with you and get you going, you know?
A lot of the, you can get that training through Loose.
Yeah.
And a lot of the indivisible organizations, the local indivisibles, have trainings about, online trainings about that.
Right. So would you say? So are you from Framingham or? Cool. Would you say that Framingham has like an infrastructure to like respond to like an ICE sighting?
Yeah. I know that
cool.
There's an agency. I don't know the full name. It's called CASA.
CASA.
Oh. CASA. CASA.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
I'm really forgetting this. Casa Mirna?
Yes, I think so. I have their number, and it's in Framingham. They work with Loose, and
Cool.
they do the trainings, and there are people who are trained as observers and verifiers. We call through CASA, we call through Loose for that stuff.
Great.
CASA also is doing, having people drive kids to school for parents who can't do that, and doing food distribution, and doing standouts, and doing bond support for detainees. So,
Look at that. Doing all the good stuff we've been talking about this whole time. That's great. That's great.
I know that there's some groups trying to develop the hyper-local neighborhood groups.
Yes.
Where NICE just comes.
Right.
I don't really know the way to get into that.
Yeah.
But that's all kind of happening, and I think
Right.
people look through Indivisible and things like that.
Yeah.
I apologize for my ignorance or our ignorance on what's happening specifically in Framingham. I would really hope that this is a place. Obviously, you don't need me to tell you. It's a very immigrant dense city. It's one of the places that when I was doing more immigrant organization work, I spent a lot of time here. I knew a lot better then. But yeah, that also I think kind of highlights. In mutual aid work and in sort of broader community organizing in general, there actually really is a role for everyone. And I try to say this a lot because I think there's a lot of people who get a real, for lack of a better way to describe it, a real tough guy mentality about like, you've got to be out there, banging heads. You've got to, be jumping in front of ICE agents' cars. And I'll say this, I don't critique basically anyone's tactics. And Bill and I have talked about this before. But it doesn't mean you don't have to, if that's not for you, there's a lot of other things you can do. There's roles for people that are good at analysis or data collection. There's roles that are good for people who really like to cook. There's roles that are good for people that are really good with kids. There's honestly something for everyone.
Groundice.org. Look into your city's pension fund. Look into it. Wrote a piece about that recently. Lester, sorry, you had a question? Were you raising? No? Oh, I'm sorry.
I will update the thing. Casa Mirna is Boston specific. The one in Framingham is, I just Googled it to double check, is Casa del Trabajador. They're the ones who are
Cool.
do the work.
That's it. That's it. What do you think? Anybody have any questions? Any questions for us about all this? You want to hear about my regimen for how I tear gas myself and whack myself in the shins with billy clubs every morning to get ready? I did actually just order like 100 whistles off the internet, like very, very cheap whistles, and plan on passing those out when I'm at the next anti-ICE demonstration, because the way that people in Minneapolis have been using those is very interesting and effective, I think. So
maybe I'll nitpick Chris one more time. You said when you give something, there shouldn't be conditions. Mm-hmm. Would you say the food stamps part of the government shouldn't tell people they can't use that money to buy potato chips? something like that?
Yes, I would say that. I mean, I'll say too, the only thing that I'm trying to have a strong opinion on, or I guess to try to speak from some place of knowledge on with mutual aid is like, don't do not mutual aid and think you're doing mutual aid, or don't do not mutual aid and say that you're doing mutual aid. That's like the only thing I ask of anyone. If it's charitable project work or whatever, that's fine. I just feel like there are some tenets to mutual aid, and one of the central ones is not to have limitations or mean testing on what people need. We just trust that if they're here and saying that they need it, they need it. That said, I don't think there should be, personally, I don't think there should be restrictions on what you can get with food stamps. And I think that there is, again, a thing that comes out of the traditional mindset on these things is that people can't make good choices because they're in a position that they have to be on public assistance, which I don't agree with. And I think if people were being honest with themselves who hold that belief, also a part of it is you shouldn't have nice things. If you need something from us, you shouldn't have nice things. You shouldn't be able to get your kid a birthday cake. And I just don't, I don't believe that. I think we all have some degree of a tough life and a tough world to go through right now, and we need our outlets and coping mechanisms, and yours might be potato chips. I think that's do what you got to do.
Can I ask you the Dean Spade book? Do you know the title of it?
Mm-hmm. I do. The Dean Spade book is called Mutual Aid: Building Solidarity During This Crisis, parentheses, and the Next.
I think that, I don't have my phone with me, so I don't have it, but just this week I saw online, I got online a free copy of an ebook, and I think it was Dean Spade.
It might be. It's a really good book. I have read it.
I don't know what it's through, but I'm pretty sure Dean Spade, Mutual Aid, maybe you could Google that and say free ebook, and it's on sale for whatever the organization is, like through February 2nd or something like that.
That's awesome. Yeah. I don't have a copy of it anymore. I tend to read books and then give them away, and then sometimes they come back, and sometimes I order them again. I just bought the Kropotkin book for probably the second or third time because I was like, I should reread this before we do this talk. I'll have to pass it off to you at some point, mostly because it's beautifully illustrated.
Yeah, I'm more of a Joe Dirt guy myself, but I'll read it.
This kind of, it hits the middle.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Good, yeah. That's great. Well, hey, we're at, what are we at? We're the episode that you all helped us contribute to.
Oh yeah, sorry. The most important thing here is not any of you guys. The most important thing is that we get this podcast.
It was a group project. It was an exercise in mutual aid of digital content creation, I would say. Thank you so much for the great questions, for coming down. I don't know. Is there anything else that we should talk about or say? Or
we have 2 books. Not a lot came in that you can check out if you have a minute and card. There's also some crossover zines. So I think there's some zines on bail funds. There's some zines on community organizing, free fridges. So if you're interested in any of those, you can check those out, or you can just look at them here and leave them. There's a QR code to subscribe to Bill's newsletter. The podcast is available wherever you get your podcasts. But yeah, we hope to build more mutual aid in Framingham. I'm from Worcester, so I'm very familiar with mutual aid stuff that's happening in Worcester and inspired by it. And we would love to see it happen in Framingham. Day is a great resource, our social worker.
Social work intern.
Social work intern. So if you have questions, or even they could probably set you up with some of the mutual aid groups that are around. We have some great harm reduction groups around here. Rise, I think, is something else now.
It exists. It's
they've changed names, their structure, but they're great. They're a great harm reduction group. We tend to have some harm reduction supplies here, like testing strips. We've done Narcan training a couple times, but
We're going to have a Narcan box that will be available if you know where the little food pantry is in the library that was mentioned earlier. There's going to be a box that has free Narcan in it underneath that should be getting installed soon. It's just taking a minute.
But yeah, we would love, as a library, to get more involved. You know, libraries are essential to the community, and they're our last free public resource, so whatever we can do to better suit our community and, you know, meet the needs of our community for free, we want to do, so connect with us.
Yeah, shout out to your library and to Kelly and Joss and the other folks who put this together and are doing really cool work here and are trying to help in getting everybody informed and equipped and doing it in a way that's accessible to everyone. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. One last thing. Secret Mall Apartment. New documentary on Netflix. It is so good. It's about these Providence weirdos that built an apartment in the Providence Mall. You know, we got the Auburn Mall that's pretty much empty, so we're gonna have the Outdoor Cats recording studio in there. I think is our next step.
Yeah.
Just need to find a way to shimmy up into the back.
Yeah, we got to find the weird void space.
Natick Mall, it's going to be a little harder. You know, that's
I worked there. I know the void space.
all right.
Providence Place when that was going on.
Wow, we're about to recreate the
I got you.
Andor here.
Yeah.
You're going to give us the site plans and everything. That's awesome.
Yes. Occupy the void spaces in the malls.
Yeah. Yes. All right. Good. Well, thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
And sign up for the newsletter.
Oh yeah, and sign up for the newsletter.
Thanks.
Yeah. Great.
Get a dose of dirty cold to go, been cold since cold flow. Got a wire to enlarge and I'll set a fire down below. I hang it up when you say sorry, didn't know. Probably got a year 10 to go, so let's go. I don't really know how to go slow.
Just got done walking in the snow.
Goddamn, that motherfucker's cold. Hey, you in the wrong mode, you open and close, you know holes, no go. This whole world's a shit mode, built to the brim like Gitmo. When you think it don't get more low, with limbo to the sticks on flow. All oppression's born of lies, I don't make the rules, I'm just one guy. All due respect of getting spit on's how respect is now defined. Hungry for truth, but you got screwed and drank the Kool-Aid. There's a line, it ends directly at the edge of a mass grave that's their design. Funny fact about a cage, they're never built for just one group. So when that cage is done with them and you still pour it, come for you. The newest, lowest on the totem, with godly G you have been used. You have to build a death machine that down the line will kill you too. Pseudo-Christians, y'all are different. Kids in prisons ain't a sin shit. Even one scrap of what Jesus taught connected, you feel different. With a disingenuous way to piss away existence, I don't get it. I say you lost your goddamn minds if y'all possess one to begin with.